Welcome back, you guys. Previously in the last episode, we just painted the whole entire engine bay and it turned out absolutely phenomenal. What we're going to start doing in this video is we're going to be starting to assemble and get things kind of put back in here in place, so that way we can hopefully fingers crossed, get this motor back in here soon enough, and kind of get all the prep work done, so that way we have everything set and pretty much ready to go for the most part. What we're going to start by doing first, since we just painted it, is I'm going to try to clean out some of all these holes that are threaded with just a tap. We have some taps and some dies, and we're just going to run these through really quick just to clean out some of that old paint, so that way we can get our bolts in just a little bit easier and things should hopefully go together a little bit more smoothly. I just spent probably the last hour or so cleaning out every single one of the bolt holes on pretty much dang near everything on this, so we are all cleaned up and ready to go for the assembly. We're just going to kind of start off in reverse order and start knocking stuff out. For installing some of our new parts, we have all new hardware. As you can see, this is M6 by 1.0. These are like a 16 millimeter, but they're nice zinc plated, clean, crispy bolts that we're going to be using to put this back in. The only thing difference with these is they don't have lock washers on them. We should still be fine. They're still a 10 millimeter, so it's same size as factory, but we're going to kind of use this just around the bay to refreshen stuff up, as opposed to using the old crusty rusty bolts. The engine compartment is coming together very nicely. We have the wiring harness almost about 90% of the way, all re-zip tied back into place, kind of where it was from the factory, as far as we can go without having the motor in. And then we have quite a few different accessories in. So we're gonna come back to the bench because I have two more new, I guess, kits that we're gonna be installing. This is an ABS Delete Kit from STM. It has all new stainless lines for the front brakes, as well as the lines that go to the reservoir, and it contains all the fittings and everything you need to mount directly from your proportioning valve to the calipers. This goes directly to those, which is pretty cool about this kit. And then over here on the right, what I have is a all new clutch line. This is from 3SX. I love these lines, they're amazing. They replace the stock hard line as well as the hose, because the factory clutch line has two pieces, a hard line, and then it goes to a hose and then to the slave. This deletes all of that. This goes directly from the clutch reservoir all the way to your clutch slave cylinder, and it has what you need in this kit. So this is also a pretty cool kit as well. And I ordered this in red just so we have a little bit of a splash of color and we can kind of differentiate it from our stainless lines. Let's go over to the car and we're gonna get these hooked up. We are going to start with the ABS Delete Kit first. If we go ahead and take a look back on the firewall where this proportioning valve would sit, which is going to be right underneath this black bracket where that bolt is right there. Now we still do have the two existing brake lines in here for the rears, and this is why you cannot cut these ones. You do need to keep them because they will work in conjunction with this. If you cut these, you're going to have to reroute and reline all your brake lines all the way to the rear and have to redo all that, which is a mess to say at the least. Now with this mounted up on the wall, these two lines, they stay exactly where they're at and they go into this proportioning valve the same way. They're going to go into the top ones. So this one right here, and then this one where my thumb is right there. So we'll get this mounted on and we're gonna get these two tightened up, and then I'll show you how the other stainless lines are gonna get routed. Once you get your lines out of the bag, there's gonna be 4 lines in total. We're gonna get rid of 2 of them and knock 2 out right away, right off the bat. You're gonna look for the lines that have a straight on both ends that look just like this. So this is what they should look like. The other ones have these 90s. So there's the 90s and then one that might have an eyelet. Those ones we're gonna leave off to the side. We'll get to those in just a second. But once you find both of the lines with the straights, they are very similar in length. One is probably gonna be about 4 inches longer than the other line. So for the longer line, we're gonna have that running to the driver's side, because the proportioning valve, it's a little bit more located on the passenger side. So to give us a little bit more length, we'll use the longer one over here so we have more room for routing, and then we're going to put the shorter line over on this side. And I also pulled up this diagram off of 3SX's website that shows how to route this ABS Delete Kit. Pretty easy, self-explanatory, but I did find a photo of it. You might be able to screenshot it in this video, but this is what I'm essentially going to be following. We're going to grab one of these fittings out of the bag. You can see there's 2 ends to it. You have one that's a pointy conical side, and then the other side is going to be a flat side. This flat side is what's going to go into the proportioning valve. So this is going to go right here. We'll thread this on. It's just a little bit easier to thread this part in first before the line, so we don't have to twist the line all over the place. And we're going to cinch this little fitting down nice and tight before we do go ahead and put our other stainless line on and thread that on next. I'm kind of thinking this over as I do this, what the easiest and best way is. We're just gonna get all of these fittings. They're gonna be all the same. All these are gonna go into all the open slots that we have. So it's gonna be the bottom 2 over there, the bottom 2 over there. We're just gonna thread all these in first, so that way we can have this set up and ready to go for our lines, and we can just thread the lines in after that. All right, we have our first 2 lines mounted up, and these are the ones that go to the calipers. You'll notice that these stainless lines, they run behind these ones. Your rear brake lines, the hard lines that are on there, are gonna ride over the top of this whole unit. So I'll make sure that you route this up like that, otherwise you'll be having to take these back off. We'll get these all tightened up once everything is mounted, but this is pretty simple. The driver's side wheel is going to go to that one right there, and it's routed all the way over to that wheel well. And then this side is going to go to your passenger side wheel well. And I just have these sitting in here. I installed the grommets in. These will go through and directly underneath there, and then we can route it through your little caliper hose piece that would go through, and then directly to your caliper. So now next up, we just have the two bottom ports, that one, and both of those are going to go over to the proportioning valve. I'll show you which one goes to what for that. Looking at our last two lines that we have, you'll notice that there's going to be a little bit of a difference between these two lines. This one has a straight with a 90-degree elbow, and then this one has a 90-degree elbow with a banjo bolt style. And to start with this proportioning valve, we're just going to slip one of these fittings right into the top. This one has the 90-degree, comes off of this. We got it going and kind of routed down. I'll mount this stuff up a little bit later, but it goes underneath the brake master, and it goes to this bottom right there, and I have that tightened in. That's the only side that makes sense for this to go to, kind of based off of what the last line is that we have, and I'll show you that. Last but not least, this is going to be the line that goes on the side of the reservoir, right down there. A little bit harder to get to, but that's why it has this eyelet with the banjo bolt, as well as two copper crush washers. We're going to get these onto this banjo, and we'll thread this in and try to get this on the side tightened up. This side piece in, and interestingly enough, I have this all the way tightened bottom out, and you can see there's a gap in between right here. Like this bolt is too long by only a tiny bit. I don't know what the deal is with that, but we're gonna probably need to find another bolt or something else different that will work in this. Wasn't really expecting to run into this issue with this kit. I'll probably reach out to STM and see what the deal is. I would assume this is the factory stock proportioning valve, so I don't know why that isn't quite working, but we're still going to get everything just routed up and kind of in place for the meantime right now. We'll get this last 90-degree on. This just is going to go on that last bottom left corner over there. We'll get that cinched, and then that should pretty much wrap this section up. All 100% tightened and fastened up with this ABS Delete, and the proportioning valve is all set up and ready to go. This is how it's going to look when it's all finished. So I'll just go over the routing real quick with you again, but the top two ports are going to be the rear brake lines where the factory ones were located. You want to reuse them. This one over here on the passenger side is going to come out to this wheel well side right here and go to your caliper, directly to your caliper. Right across from that on the other side is going to be your straight one that also goes over to your driver's side caliper through that wheel well. And then on the bottom side, so you'll have a 90-degree elbow, and this is the one that goes to the side of the proportioning valve with that banjo bolt and the crush washers. And then the straight right there is the one that goes onto the very top with that 90-degree elbow right there, as you can see. So this is the only routing that I found that makes sense. It should be pretty simple and easy. I don't see why I'm going to have any issues with this. The only last thing is that we will need to get a smaller bolt for that right there. Nice, cool, slick little install. Looks so much nicer and cleaner in the bay. The last thing too as well is that there is also two more fittings in this kit, and it took me a second to realize what these were for, but duh, obviously these are going to be for the calipers once we get them bolted on, and that's what's going to allow the ends of these to thread into. So we'll thread those in once we actually get the calipers on, but I'm going to need some new brake pads and stuff, so I'll get to that in the future. We're just going to kind of tie this up for now, and we're going to move on to that clutch line, which is also pretty cool. This is everything that comes in the clutch line stainless line kit from 3SX. You have the two flared fittings and obviously your stainless line, and then the one nice thing that I like that they include is also going to be one of these little black rubber grommets that fits perfectly on the firewall where that clutch line goes through. So this will hopefully kind of protect it a little bit and keep it from rubbing and potentially getting ripped or tore on that. We just got that fitting in. We're just going to tighten this up with a socket first before we put our line on it. It's a 13 millimeter. Just give it just a little quick crank on it. This line has two sides to it. One is going to be a straight. The other is going to be a 90. For the section in the corner, this is going to utilize the straight section right here. So we'll get this threaded on, and then I'll show you guys how to tighten this up because it's obviously a very tight to reach spot there. Starting to get tight. The way that I do it is I like to use these like crowfoot wrenches. Probably the only time you're ever going to use these things. Take it, throw it on an extension, and then we can come right kind of in this corner, and that's the only thing that pretty much gets down in there. You might be able to with a wrench, but this just kind of works a little bit better. So we'll get this section tightened up, and then that'll pretty much conclude all that we can do for this line. All right, now that that's tightened, we're going to come to the other end. We need to push this grommet through. We'll just do it right now so it's a little bit easier. All right, so now the grommet's through. Come over here, we're gonna feed this arm. Hopefully this elbow will fit through that, just like so. Route this down. And then we can go ahead and hit up that grommet and get this fed into this section. So we'll get this placed in here. And then your last fitting will go into this section, and then this will go into the slave cylinder once we get the transmission and all that on the car. So we'll leave this as is, just kind of set it off to the side. This is all mounted. I got to see kind of how I want to get these routed and where exactly I want to mount this in addition to all of these lines. I'll see about bracketing what I can kind of do, but essentially this is pretty much concluded. It's about 2 days later, and we're just finishing up and completing all the stainless lines on this kit. I did want to give you a quick update. STM did pull through, and they were able to get us a little bit of a shorter bolt. It's right here on the left, and I guess it sounds like a couple of these bolts came out in a batch, and they were just a little bit too long. So they shipped it out, no questions asked. We'll get this new one put on, and then I also did want to show you as well, I did kind of finagle up these lines up a little bit better. I used some of the factory brake line brackets that were originally on the car. We got one sitting on the bottom right there in between the subframe, where I got all three lines sitting in right down there. And then I have another one underneath the brake master right over here. Again, we have those kind of all clumped up right there. And then currently I have just one little bracket sitting there, and that should be good enough to hold this in. I can't really do the other side until I kind of get the battery tray in there and kind of know what it's going to do. And then I also did have some line separators, just some these are 4AN stainless line separators. We got two of those right down there, just kind of keep all these lines intact. But everything is looking good, and it's almost looking pretty much like factory at this point. So that's pretty much all that we're gonna do. We'll get this new banjo bolt in. It should be the right length, and then that'll pretty much complete this whole stainless line install. ABS Delete Kit, new stainless full clutch line. I'm loving how this is starting to look. That red is definitely a cool pop like that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe.